Hey folks, how's it going? Welcome back to the channel. And yeah, with the whole world incident going on, I know a lot of you were very curious as to what I was going to be talking about day to day, and I basically decided that since there's going to be some gaps in the schedule, we may as well go backwards and check out some shows that I've been meaning to check out for a little while now. And for the longest time, I've been meaning to actually cross off some pretty popular boys' love series off my list, starting with JUNJO Romantica. Oh, and before we begin, I do want to say a quick apology for the screenshot. Somebody decided to upload the footage in 480p. Anyway, moving on. Before we get into the video proper, I would like to remind you all that if you would like to have your name shouted out in next week's JUNJO Romantica video, then be sure to share this video around on the internet, and then tag me at JoJo Talks Too Much over on Twitter, and I will be sure to shout your name out in next week's video. But with that said, let's go ahead and talk about the premiere episode of JUNJO Romantica. So, I bet a lot of you didn't see this coming, or maybe you did. I think if you were on the Discord, I've mentioned that I was watching this, so a lot of you probably knew this was coming, but those of you who aren't in the Discord you guys should join our Discord, Good Folks Discord. We talk about a lot of crazy stuff. But that said, I want to talk about this show. I don't know what I expected going into it, but I was pleasantly surprised. Now, I know precious little about JUNJO Romantica. I know it's a classic yaoi series that people have been talking about for ages that I just, for some reason, never crossed off the list. And I'm aware that there's like three romantic interests, or not interests, but like three separate romantic tales within said show. I believe it's the Romantica, the main one. I think the other one is like, I can't remember the other one. I think one of them is like, I'm not even gonna say it just for fear of getting demonetized, but it's something bad. So I was like, okay, I know vaguely that it's about three separate romantic stories. I'm not sure how they all tie in to each other, since Misaki and Akihiko seem pretty insular as a couple, so I'm not sure if maybe they get friends as we go. I don't know. What I do know is the first meeting of these two was not exactly the meeting most romantic couples have. I will say that it's definitely not a textbook example of a meet cute, if you will, but I do think it's kind of fun, and it adds a little special something to the dynamic, since you assume, oh, okay, so they're the main two, they're gonna have like kind of the wholesome relationship. No, Akihiko wasn't even interested in Misaki. In fact, he saw him as kind of just nothing. He saw him as nothing. He just saw him as his main love interest's little brother. Like, he didn't really see him as anything outside of that. But yeah, because even Misaki doesn't really take any sort of interest in Akihiko right away. It's not until much later. And it's funny too, because it's Takahiro who brings them together, like in their first meeting, and then later on in the episode, it's Takehiro's mistake, sort of, not really mistake, but Takahiro making maybe not being the best friend in the world, and introducing them to his fiance, which later actually pulls these two together full force. But before we get into that, we gotta talk about what I will refer to only as a yikes moment. And what do I mean by a yikes moment? Well, after the pair meet for the first time, we later find out after the OP kicks up, and I have thoughts on the OP, we'll get to it at the end of the video, but after the OP, we reunite with Misaki, and he is basically narrating to us that he's gotten himself a tutor, thanks to his brother. His brother set up a tutor for him, and the dude lives at this big fancy building that Misaki's about to step into, and of course, it's Akihiko, sorry. And when he walks into Akihiko's apartment, he can't help but notice that, oh, like, these are his books. So these should be, I've seen these in bookstores and stuff. These should be shipping out soon. That's kind of cool. Oh, what's this? This is like what is this, like a BL book? He wrote a BL book. It's under a pseudonym. And as he's flipping through the book, Misaki can't help but notice that the book is literally about Akihiko and Takahiro, and it's like a love story about them, and Misaki is very clearly upset by this, and he storms into Akihiko's room, which I'll admit was vaguely terrifying. The way it was shot is kind of spooky with all the toys and everything. It was a little bit unsettling. And this leads to our yikes moment. And the yikes moment is basically Akihiko gets upset with Misaki for storming into the room. Misaki gets upset right back and says, like, why are you writing about my brother in your Boys Love series, you perv? Like, blah, blah, blah. Gets all angry at him. And Akihiko decides to do stuff to Misaki. And it's a little uncomfortable. I'm not gonna lie, it's a little uncomfortable. But here's the thing. It's uncomfortable in the modern hindsight. It's uncomfortable, right? At the time, and you gotta keep in mind, this was a yaoi made in 2008. This is what the target demographic wanted at the time. Because again, it's not meant to be representation. It's kind of just yaoi. It's just dudes being dudes. Well, dudes doing dudes is more like it. And it's, yeah, like, so it's made to appeal to a certain demographic. That demographic ate it up in 2008. I don't know if you could get away with certain scenes that I assume are going to be in this series in 2020. But that said, with 2020 hindsight, it is a little bit uncomfortable, for sure. I definitely kind of was like, can't believe we're doing this. But I just kind of, got past it. And I don't know. It doesn't ruin the show for me. It's over a decade old, so it's not gonna have the same sensibilities that we have in 2020. I'm able to move on past that. In fairness, though, some of you might not. So if you're gonna be watching along with me week to week, then yeah, that might bug some of you. So just be forewarned. There is a scene like that in this episode. I don't think it's that bad, but it is like, it's a lot. However, it ultimately leads into a pretty fun dynamic that takes up the middle portion of the episode, that being Misaki now being under the tutelage of Akihiko. That's kind of their dynamic. I wasn't sure initially, like, when I found out that Akihiko was, like, a writer, I had assumed, like, when I first heard about the series, that Misaki was, like, also trying to be a writer. I don't know why I thought that. Maybe I'm thinking of, like, a different yaoi series. I don't know, but yeah, it turns out that he's just tutoring him. So Akihiko is basically attempting to help Misaki get into his specific university, that being Mitsuhashi University. And at first you're sort of like, why specifically this one? But Misaki's dead set on it, so we're just going to kind of roll with it. And they actually start to form a kind of fun and cute little dynamic where both of them are very clearly not really into the other one. They find the other one to be obnoxious in their own way. And the rest of the episode is basically watching the two of them form a sort of like teacher-student-ish bond, but knowing that, like, romantically there might be something here, but it's not really played with for the most part until the end of the episode. And it's during this middle portion that we learn that Misaki wants to attend Mitsuhashi specifically because his brother wanted to go. But when their parents died, the brother stepped up and he didn't get to go to Mitsuhashi University. Instead, he chose to raise Misaki. So now Misaki is doing his best, even though he's a bit of a slacker, he's doing his best to get into this university, the university that his brother wanted to go to. And it's sweet and adorable, and I loved it. And it was really, really charming, and it got me to really like Misaki. I still thought Akihiko was a bit of a creep at this point, but I liked Misaki a lot. And at this point, I'm thinking like, okay, so no matter what, Misaki's in my good books. Cool. Then we get to this big moment in the episode, and it kind of flipped my opinion on these, not only these two as a couple, but sort of the show as a whole. And that's the big turning point being Takahiro introducing Akihiko and Misaki to his fiance. And this does get a reaction out of Akihiko, but he kind of holds it together because Akihiko obviously like really loves Takahiro. And he's trying not to show it because he doesn't want to ruin their friendship, because Takahiro's kind of clearly straight and doesn't see Akihiko like that. But Akihiko obviously still loves him, still cares a great deal about him, and just wants him to be happy. So it's this really bittersweet moment. And then Misaki like hits the wall and is trying to be calm, but since he's younger than everybody there, and he's very clearly like new to romance, he is a little bit thrown off by this. So he grabs Akihiko and they run out. And there's this beautiful scene by a streetlight in the snow. Well, it's not in the snow, but it's snowing. And it's this like really genuinely heartfelt scene, and it got me. This is where I was like, okay, more of this, please. And it's not only did it sell me on the show, it sold me on the couple. And I was like, okay, Akihiko's still a little bit of a, like, not even a little bit, a lot of a perv for some of the stuff he does in the beginning of the episode and later on at the end of the episode. But the moment where he starts to kind of break down himself, like seeing Misaki break down, he obviously feels bad. But then when he finds out that Misaki's breaking down because he's so upset that Takahiro would do something so callously cold, even though Takahiro clearly didn't mean it. Like, he didn't, I don't think he's even really aware of what's going on. He was just, like, excited, and he's like, I'm getting married, yay! Like, he didn't mean it to be, like, a douchebag thing. But now that Misaki knows how Akihiko feels, it, like, really put Misaki in this weird position. And he couldn't help it. Like, his emotions kind of overloaded, and he took Akihiko and he ran. And it's, I don't know, it's a really beautiful little moment where, like, the two of them just kind of embrace and they just cry it out. They have their first kiss in this scene too, and it's a little bit aggressive, but, like, you know, it doesn't matter, because I think the scene still really speaks for itself. It really kind of moved me, and it sold me on the show, like 100%. I'm like, okay, I'm going to cover this on the channel. Screw it. There are some little wrap-up stuff I want to talk about quickly before I leave you guys. Namely, I would like to talk a little bit about some design time. That's right, it's color time or design time, whatever we're calling this segment. I think design time makes more sense. But I'm going to be really brief because I don't want to go too overtime in this premiere. But I'll say that Misaki, having sort of messy hair and plain clothes, to me, very clearly indicates his character. That he's sort of a slacker. He's not really prepared. He's not like he's not like a bad kid. It's just that he's not really as well kept. He's not really as prepared for the world as other characters that we see in this episode. Takahiro, Akihiko, the fiance Manami. He's the most, like, laid back. He feels the most chill of the group, but also the most, like, in touch with their emotions because of kind of how messy his appearance is. It sort of is a mirror for his soul. He's a bit of a messy dude, a little bit not prepared for the world right now. And you can see that as well in the green eyes. They actually make a point to show Misaki's eyes a couple times in this episode, and they are very green, like sort of like dark emerald eyes. And to me, this might be a nod to the fact that he's sort of inexperienced in not just life, but, you know, romantic stuff. But boy's not quite as experienced as his partner is. And that could be what they're hinting at with the eyes, like green, you know, he's green around the gills, stuff like that, basically indicating a fresh start, a rookie green, typically kind of, you know, associated with each other. It could also be a hint towards a sense of prosperity, not only for Misaki's future, but maybe his relationship with Akihiko or Usami or Usagi. I have literally spent this entire video trying not to call him Usagi because I think it's hilarious. As for Akihiko himself, it is the polar opposite. My boy's got styled gray hair, specifically gray, which I find interesting. Styled gray hair and very formal attire, basically to show a little bit more of a sophisticated nature to his character by comparison to Misaki. Both character designs actually feel less like individual character designs and more as designs that are meant to complement the other, which is really solid when you're trying to specifically create a ship with two characters. And I feel like their contrasting character designs are very much a hint in that direction, with Akihiko being like far more looking being the key word, more mature, because Akihiko was not very mature at all. And honestly, as the episode went on, the more his sort of like quirky nature, his like weird fascination with toys so that he can try to get the sort of like middle class life down pat by trying to like absorb himself in it. Like he has a lot of he's a very quirky dude considering like how he comes across as like sort of mature and sophisticated. It crumbles apart once you get to know him. The purple eyes also are definitely a hint, to me at least, of a sort of creative side to him. Since purple is typically associated with mystery and fantasy, it's usually conceived as a creative color. So this could be a hint towards the fact that he's this like world-class writer. That could be the same idea, like since the eyes are the windows to the soul, purple eyes could indicate his creative side. It could also indicate a sort of older romantic, since pink is typically the color most associated with romance. Purple is sort of a more mature romantic color, so it could be that as well. But there you go. You knew I had to talk about colors and design at some point. The only other things I can easily mention in this week's episode is the OP is... Okay, the OP, admittedly, the visuals are kind of bland. I will give you that. But oh my god, that song is so stupidly catchy. Like, I'm not saying it properly because my Japanese pronunciation is awful, but I was like literally going around my house, just as soon as I watched this episode, I went to go grab a cup of tea, and I'm just walking around going like, like just humming the whole thing the entire way. It's stupidly catchy. I'm probably going to have it in my head the rest of the day, and if you're going to be watching this along with me, you are going to have it in your head the rest of the spring season. Also, I will say the only negative, and y'all know me, I don't like being negative. I prefer positive vibes. We out here for good vibes. That said, the only negative that I had in regards to this episode is I felt like the pace was incredibly fast. It was a really, really quick-paced episode, but considering that the rest of the season, I believe, is like, I think it's like a 12 to 13 episode season. So considering how much ground we covered in this episode, I assume the rest of the season has to be a bit slower paced. So it'll let us kind of grow with these characters a little bit more. That's my only real concern, is that the pacing was really, really quick. So hopefully they remedy that in episode 2, which we will talk about next week. With that said, everybody, I'm going to wrap up my thoughts here. Thank you for watching. I don't expect this to get a lot of views. Basically, I'm going to be using these days as just filler, where I get to talk about shows that I wanted to talk about for ages, and I've been really excited to talk about this show for a while, so that's the plan. That said, question of the day today, what is your favorite BL story? Let me know in the comments below. And that's gonna do it for today's video, everybody, so I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, then by all means hitting that like button and leaving a comment down below is a great way to help out this channel, as it pleases the almighty YouTube algorithm, so if you choose to do so, kudos to you. And if you're feeling extra supportive today, you can go ahead and check out all the links in the description. One goes to my Twitter, another one is to our Discord server, another one to our merch store if you feel like grabbing yourself a mug, and of course, our Patreon page. And speaking of the Patreon page, I do want to give a big thank you to those of you in the T Squadron who support this channel month to month. Let's go ahead and do the Earl Grey shoutouts. Zevi, Andrew W, Branson C, Bria Rose, Calvin A, Crowbar of Irony, Daniel G, Digger the Fox, Dominic G, Emily, Ionos, Urza, Ginkotaku, Godzilla Fan, No For Nothing, Maria T, Marshall B, Mater, Mirth Mouser, Cell, Shadow Creative, Stephen G, Sakochi, The Suavest Orange, Tristan G, and Veridon. Thanks so much for your continued support over on Patreon, everybody, and if you too would like to join the T Squadron, then be sure to check out the first link in the description to check out our Patreon page. That is a huge way to support the channel. And again, be sure to check out the other stuff in the Discord as well. Go join our Discord. It is now public. You can all join. Everybody can hop in the Discord. Follow me on Twitter if you want me to ramble at you even more. And until next time, you stay classy, AnyTube, and wash your dang hands.